pledge of allegiance.
I pledge
I pledge
allegiance to
allegiance
the
to the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Vice Chair, will you do the roll call, please?
Al,
present.
Terry,
Present.
Michelle,
Here.
Kate,
Here.
Gladys,
Here.
Dr. Cronin,
Here.
Lauren, Juanita,
Here.
Richard Janelli,
Here.
and I.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Dr. Casimiro, you're going to do the recognition?
Sure will. Okay. We have Dr. Jill Russell Benner come up to the public stand for a moment. The Danbury Public Schools have been selected again as the best community for music education by the National Association of Music Artists, otherwise known as the NAMM Foundation, for the 6th consecutive year. So Jill, you did it again. And we'd love to find out how you did that.
Well, all I did was fill out the survey. It's really the work of my team. It's all of our staff members. It's the things that we're able to provide our students in the Danbury Schools and Music Program that make this possible. Usually, I've been singing all week. I'm teaching elementary music, so I have zero voice right now. It's very, usually I think about when we come here, how important it is to hear our students and to see our students perform. But I think this time around kind of got me thinking, like, what exactly makes us the best community for music? And it starts with what the award means, which is that it's recognizing school districts for the support and commitment to music education and efforts to ensure access to music for all students, excuse me, as part of a well-rounded education. We were one of 975 districts nationwide and one of, I believe, 36 districts in Connecticut that were given this award. Some of the things that we do have in the community that support us in the theme of community, it's the Kiwanis Club of Danbury is one example. They have a wonderful program called Music is Instrumental. They get donated instruments of all kinds, band, string, classroom, keyboard, guitar, you name it. Bring them in, we've been able to repair them, and then they go right into the hands of students. We have Western Connecticut State University, which is, for many of us, our alma mater, but also we have a great relationship with them. We have a lot of student teachers and student observers that come in. Our high school goes there and performs in like a, I want to call it an all-star, but in like a instrumental program as well. Danbury Music Center is right in town. They offer scholarships to our students every year. The Music Learning Center is just one of many businesses that not only Danbury, but surrounding towns also go to for instruments, private lessons, etc. And if you've been to a Hat Tricks game, you have seen many of our schools perform, and they're pretty awesome. Some things that we've been able to acquire over the years, we have our State Music Foundation School District, so we're up to 9 schools, it's 8 elementary schools that have been given a core band grant. That includes 32 instruments, it includes music stands, music professional development over time. That's able to give us access to kids. Music Will, which you might have heard of as Little Kids Rock, is another organization we work with. They provide us with training, modern band instruments. Spread Music Now is a place that has been highlighting our students and our teachers, the students and teachers of the month. And we have CODA every year, which is just a really wonderful accumulation of everything that we do. We even have one teacher in our department that's been nominated as a brand new music educator. So she's in the process of completing her application and hopefully makes it further. It will be very well deserving for this teacher and also wonderful for the school district. Thank you very much.
Jill, we have a recognition certificate for if you want to come up and take a quick photo in our chair.
I do have some of my team showing too.
Yeah, we noticed. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
Jill.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The board welcomes public participation and asks that the speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about Board of Education personnel and students, nor against any person connected with the Danbury Public School System.
Thank you. First on our sign-up list, I have Kelsey.
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Brown, a senior at Danbury High School. DHS has been overcrowded ever since I stepped foot in the school. I've been in classes that extended capacity to the point where there aren't enough desks for every student. In between classes, the hallways are so crowded that students can't get to class in time but are still going to fought for it. There aren't enough classrooms for students and teachers, causing them to have to share. There aren't enough guidance counselors to provide academic support to each student that needs it. There aren't enough resources for students to learn, such as academic textbooks and novels for English class. Students aren't even able to eat lunch due to the long lines that stretch down the entire cafeteria. And having witnessed all this, I have not seen enough action to find a resolution. As a long-term solution, I suggest providing alternative school options for students, such as splitting the school into 2 wings of academic learning. Students can be offered an opportunity to attend school after the regular school day for 4 hours or the state minimum as an alternative to the regular school day. This can limit the amount of students in our building at the same time. I hope that this program will be considered as an ongoing program or a solution to overcrowding until our space is extended to the new west side of DHS, so that the future students of Danbury High School have a school that fully assesses their needs and provides a safe and effective learning environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing your comments before the board. Thank you. Is there anyone else that didn't get an opportunity to sign the sign-up sheet? Seeing none, we move on. I need Almeida to move with the consent calendar.
Yes, I'll make the motion that the Board of Education approve consent calendar Exhibit 86 as recommended.
Motion made by Al, seconded by Kate. Any discussion on the agenda concerning the consent calendar? Seeing none, all in favor, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion so moved. Thank you very much. Educational staff.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. I feel like I just saw most of you last night, so it's nice to see you again. So I have a couple of things I want to talk to you about tonight. The first is the issue with our members reporting in large numbers that many of their tax returns have been placed on hold by the IRS. So this afternoon, we sent out a survey because we weren't really sure how widespread the issue was. And we sent the survey out at 2 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock, I already had 30 confirmed members who have had their taxes placed on hold. So we're really concerned about this, obviously. I don't know if you have heard about it in other groups of employees. I know the Administrators Union has also had some members have the same thing happen to them. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that we spoke about this back in January, and we were concerned when we were issued the wrong W-2s, and the district had to issue us secondary W-2s later on, several weeks later, because there was inaccurate reporting on those. So we're tracking this, and my guess is that with 30 responses, and not every rep has even sent the survey out yet, that we're going to see a lot more. We're almost at 5% right now of our membership. So we're going to be tracking this, and we'll share the data with you, but we may be coming back to you and asking the district to take responsibility to help us fix this, because it is obviously something that's putting great stress on a lot of our members if we do connect it back to that W-2 issue. The second issue, and I know it's on your agenda for updates this evening, is the reduction in force issues. As you can imagine, our folks, especially our untenured folks, are worried and unsettled about all of the rumors that are flying around and the facts that are flying around about position cuts that are looming. So we're looking for updates on the number of positions in specific areas to be cut, including most specifically the central office positions. And we are expecting, as the largest bargaining unit, we're expecting that heavy cuts to be made at central office that will restore staffing to central office at a minimum to pre-pandemic levels. Teachers are reporting to us that they're seeking out letters of recommendation from their administrators and beginning job searches elsewhere. No one feels like they're safe from impending upheaval, and that's very understandable, as we can all agree. Many of our veteran teachers close to retirement continue to ask us if there will be any sort of incentive packages offered for early retirement. I strongly urge the board to consider a package offering for these folks to reduce your top step salary expenditures for the next few years. That is something that I've been asking for since 2020, when we still had ESSER monies to work with. The sooner that we can move forward with a plan of action, the better it will be for the mental well-being of our staff. Being in a holding pattern of uncertainty is creating havoc as we enter the last 2 months of school. This afternoon, NEA Danbury held a reduction in force workshop for untenured teachers. As you can imagine, it was widely attended. The third issue that I wanted to bring up, and this is probably one that's not on your radar, but it's one that is really disturbing and actually very annoying to elementary teachers specifically. It is what we think is a Danbury School lunch program overstep. So we were notified a few weeks ago, probably about a month ago, elementary school teachers, there was a new policy in place coming from the school lunch office to go through a series of steps in order to book a field trip and have lunches ready for our students. In days of old, ever since I've been a teacher for 20 years, our kids go on a field trip. We order lunches for them like we do normally for any other day, except we ask them to be bagged lunches. Simple as that. Take lunch count like we do every day. Well, this year, the school lunch program sent us a list of things that we need to do in order to take our kids on a field trip. I want to go through the steps for you, and you can kind of just play it out in your mind how long this would take. So first is a PDF that must be filled out 2 weeks in advance before the field trip and provided to the kitchen so they'll know how many meals to prepare. No problem there, that's what we normally do. The second is an Excel spreadsheet. The spreadsheet must be filled out by the teacher to include the student's district ID numbers, as well as their first and last name for all the students ordering meals. Both of those documents then need to be scanned and returned to Douglas Langridge, Operations Manager at the school lunch office. At the time of lunch, teachers need to check off on this same spreadsheet, so open the document up again and check off which students then receive a meal. Then we have to scan and return those final documents to the school lunch office the day after the field trip. To do all these steps takes one full 40-minute prep period. So as you can imagine, this is time spent away from planning and readying our lessons. It's an unnecessary and non-job related task placed on only elementary teachers. So rather than the Danbury School Lunch Program employees doing this, they have decided it was okay to pass this on directly to teachers, which we object to greatly. So those are my 3 negative issues, if you want to call them that. But obviously, as a teacher, I like to talk about positives, and we all know we had such a wonderful evening last night. So let's talk a little bit about the Teacher of the Year ceremony. Last evening was such a lovely celebration of all that is good within our schools. The celebration of teachers and our Teachers of the Year from each school was a joyous event and a much needed boost of positivity for our community. I went to school this morning and people had smiles on their faces. And obviously the Teacher of the Year was from my school, so we were all in a very happy place. It's so important for our district to continue the Teacher of the Year award and ceremony. Having a Teacher of the Year award within our district serves as a powerful means to recognize excellence in teaching, and it's crucial for several reasons. As you know, teaching is often a challenging and underappreciated profession. Highlighting exceptional educators through a Teacher of the Year award allows us to celebrate and showcase the dedication, passion, and hard work of our outstanding teachers. It's our way to honor their contributions to education and the community. It also serves as a motivation and morale boost. We need that. Being recognized as Teacher of the Year can be a tremendous morale boost for educators. It not only validates their efforts, but also motivates them to continue striving for excellence. Moreover, it inspires other teachers to improve their practice and aspire to similar levels of achievement. It also is great for professional development. The Teacher of the Year award can serve as a platform for professional development. Winners often become ambassadors for their profession, sharing their best practices, innovative teaching methods, and insights with their colleagues. I want to once again congratulate all of the individual school Teachers of the Year. Sitting on that stage last night in the presence of so many outstanding educators was both empowering and energizing. And I know everyone here knows just how lucky we all are to have such amazing educators in Danbury, the absolute best of the best. Last evening during my remarks, I urged the audience not just to celebrate teachers with lip service on one day of the year, but to work together, to come together as a community to advocate for real change. Change in funding that lets us show our teachers that we value and appreciate their hard work, and ensuring that they have the reasonable class sizes, support, tools, and resources they need to succeed for our children. Of course, I finally want to extend a heartfelt and personal congratulations to my friend and colleague of many years, Sarah Cephaloni, who was named the DPS District Teacher of the Year last evening. Boy, Sarah is such a wonderful choice. She embodies all that is good in teaching. And if you don't know her, you should get to know her because she's a pretty amazing person. She has an unyielding passion for teaching, and she exhibits genuine enthusiasm for instruction and fostering growth in her classroom. She has a tireless commitment for her students, and she deeply cares about their well-being, growth, and success, both academically and personally. And she is the best communicator, the nicest communicator, both in and out of the classroom. She actively engages with the broader community, forging partnerships with parents to enhance the educational experience for all of her students and her families. She also is a leader in our building, whether it's through mentoring new teachers, colleagues, supporting professional development workshops, or taking on extra leadership roles in extracurricular activities. Sarah is the go-to helper for our building. Most of all, and this is the thing that strikes me the most about Sarah, she demonstrates empathy and understanding and builds positive relationships with all. No one, I've never heard anyone say a negative word about Sarah. She is as kind as she appears. and she fosters a supportive and inclusive classroom environment. Once again, Sarah, we are so proud of you, and we're sending out many hugs of congratulations to her. As always, honorable board members, thank you for your attention this evening, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, students representative. Do we have anyone from the high school? No? So we have Ace.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Good evening, Board of Ed members, Cabinet and community members. Thank you for allowing me to represent and speak on behalf of the Alternative Center for Excellence. ACE is happy to announce the students are 4 sessions in with Coapolis, which has a 10-session residency called Movement, this spring at ACE during our flex time. Movement is a movement residency that brings together students of varying abilities, ages, and backgrounds together to create a student-led community. Students learn together how to express themselves through collaborative and improvisational movement with physicality and humor. Workshops focus on socio-emotional skills, teamwork, collaboration, and self-expression. Joanne Holmes in the ACE journalism class would also like to invite you all to check out our new articles in the Alternative Times. The Alternative Times can be accessed at acealternativetimes.com and on Twitter as @AceAlternativeTimes. ACE would like to invite you all to Joe Happen Day on Saturday, May 11th from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The event will be an opportunity to appreciate Joe Pepin and ACE. We will have guest speakers, community organizations, music, face painting, rock painting, hamburgers and hot dogs, and an ACE merchandise tent. Please join us on a special day at ACE. The ACE Cares Butterflies project is called Means of Healing for Crops Air. The students are creating large butterfly forms decorated with spring graphics and a personalized written message of healing and hope. These will be delivered to the Cancer Center during the first week of May. ACE's Children's Literature class is continuing its 2nd year of collaboration with Ms. Huntington's 3rd grade class at Ellsworth Elementary School. The ACE students serve as reading mentors to the 3rd graders. They also partner with the grade school class to draw illustrations for the ACE students' original children's books, which is the final project for the Children's Literature class. ACE Pros, accompanied by Daniela Esposito and Diana DiNardo, will be hiking at Steep Rock Preserve in Washington, Connecticut at the summit. They will sit for 1 hour without talking, texting, or music to listen to the sounds of nature and draw or write what they hear and see. Poets will share their work and how we can make poetry together. This is the 10th poetry hike since its inception in 2017. Kyle Tricola and Kaki Piragastini will be chaperoning 10 students in the ACE van to visit the American Museum of Natural History on Tuesday, May 14th. Students attending are enrolled in astronomy and in the African American / Black and Latino Studies classes. Thank you for letting us share the special opportunities that are happening this spring at ACE. And good night.
Good night. Don't get off, Kaylee. Thank you on behalf of the board for always being here and being supportive and bringing us information from ACE. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You
Thank
too.
so much.
Okay, we're gonna move on down. I know this is something new on the agenda, but I discussed it with all my board chairpersons. So we're gonna start with Community Relations Committee. Kate?
Sure, I don't have a tremendous update for community relations. We do have our next meeting tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. And I hope folks will be able to tune in for that. It is going to be conducted via Zoom. So I look forward to seeing committee members and starting some conversation around some of our initiatives. And that's about it.
Thank you, Kate. Curriculum Committee. Lauren?
So we have our next meeting on May 22nd. The last meeting we were talking about the academies, and the next meeting we'll go over a little bit about the curriculum and the programming for the academies.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Finance, Mr. Janelli?
I'd first like this evening to recognize that Mr. Spang is not here. He is on his way to visit with his daughter, who's expecting a baby on Friday, and to be with his son-in-law. That'll be their first grandchild. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend congratulations and best wishes for a healthy and happy baby. This is a great time, and they'll be a grandparent. is tremendous as well as being a first-time parent. That being said, we had a Finance Committee report on April 10th. It was attended essentially by all the members except Mr. Hawley. In addition to that, pretty much all of the board members, with the exception of Mr. Hawley, was also at attendance at that particular meeting. We opened the meeting by turning it over to Mr. Spang and Mr. Weaver, who went through the financials for March 28th. It was an early cash cutoff. They explained that the expenses for the balance of the month were encumbered. They discussed the various variances and some of the exceptions in the expenses, essentially indicating that the unencumbered balance as of the end of March for the 9 months was approximately $320,000 favorable. That being said, there was a comment made by myself which indicated that we had anticipated in the month of April an unexpected charge of some $70,000 that will impact this. That's yet to be seen or materialized. There were comments made to references to the grant schedules that were attached to part of the financial statements. That pretty much covered the financial aspect of that. We had recommended as a committee that the board accept the financial statements at this particular meeting. Mr. Spanning then went on to discuss his reduction plan that he had that was successful. If you recall, in the beginning of the year, there was a shortfall of approximately $4.7 million. And then John Spang and Kevin Walton went before the ad hoc committee of the council and was asking them to take down up to, if needed, $3 million, which was still outstanding. Part of this particular plan was to be put in place, and as of the 10th of April, John explained that all of the strategies that were used to transfer funds out of the operating budget into some of the existing grant accounts that had available monies, as well as getting, I want to use the word waivers for the ESSER money balances that were there for about $1.8 million, was successfully approved. So in essence, the case is pretty much closed in terms of our need to go back to the council and ask for that particular $3 million. Not to say that we may not need something in the end of this year, but that particular issue was resolved. I'm very happy. It took a lot of creativity on the part of, I think, Mr. Spang, Dr. Casimiro, her staff, in order to be able to accommodate this. This was a great savings for the district.
Mr. Janella, do you have any additional meeting plan for your finance committee? Do you have an additional meeting plan for your finance committee?
Not yet. I have to wait for Mr. Spang to get back so we can firm up a date
Okay.
as to when the closing
Okay.
will be.
Thank you. Policy, Kate?
So, policy committee, we're in the middle of going through the 4,000 series, which relates to school personnel. And we will continue that work on April 29th at 6 p.m. We also have a meeting scheduled for May at the 20th at 6 p.m. And we will be scheduling a meeting for June as well.
Okay. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Sites and facility, Louisa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just had our last Sites and Facilities Committee meeting right before this meeting, so it's fresh on our minds. We had a very productive meeting. Dr. Casimiro updated us on the academy and where that stands as far as construction and moving forward and any adjustments and changes that are kind of flowing through that. But more importantly, the district has also looked into a lot of the concerns expressed by the students at the last city council meeting. So I'm happy to let everybody know that they have been on it, they have been looking into a lot of the concerns that the students expressed, and anything else we will report back. They're still ongoing, so we have another sites and facilities meeting that will happen in May and another one in June, dates to be determined. So we will continue to follow up on all of that.
Thank you. Will any committee members have any questions to the chairperson at this time before we move on? This is your opportunity. Yes, Teresa.
The sites and facilities, there's a update about the artist building, how we're gonna use it.
Yes, so the update is we are going to, rather than having a middle school and the high school, we're going to move it all to a high school. And Dr. Casimiro can speak more of that if you
Is it still gonna be 2 academies in that building?
yes. Go ahead.
Sure. So there would be a third. So instead of having a 360-seat middle school, so what we did was we looked at the enrollment, we went back to look at the enrollment projections coming up to reevaluate the need to have such an expensive project dedicated to only 360 seats at the middle school, and to reevaluate that space for better return on investment through the expansion of an additional high school academy model. And so through that work, we did in fact come to the conclusion that that was the best case scenario for us to explore that. And so we're going to continue to work in that area. The high school, the middle school, as you know, had just some crowding in one of the schools right now. It's mainly due to the distribution of students as opposed to a capacity across all 3. And so while the original project called for, the Carter site called for a 6-12 project, that was due to the enrollment projections way back at the conception of that original design. And we have since lived through that enrollment bubble. It's there now, and it's moving into the high school. That's really where the big problem is. We have a 2nd grade group that's coming up, that's on the larger side, that we're going to keep our eye on. And we're going to look at our SLAM study that's going to come in June to reassess whether or not we think we need to maybe add a couple of portables somewhere to help with that bubble. But right now, it doesn't look at the moment that we'll need to do that, and that we'll be able to tolerate a little uncomfortability for a couple of years, and then the enrollment will stabilize. And so, kind of pound for pound, square footage, the cost of the project, it's far less money to expand the high school, the square footage to high school, than to have a separate middle school and high school component.
So the academy, so we have 6, so there's gonna be 3 at Pepper Ridge and 3 at Cardis?
So 4 career-connected theme academies at Danbury High School, and then there would be 3 instead of 2 at the Carter site.
So we're gonna
We
have
would expand an extra one at the
an
Carter
extra
site.
academy. What is the subject going to be?
So we discussed very exciting green and clean energy, which is a very up-and-coming and highly needed research-based concept that is part of the original design. We had a renewable energy pathway that we wanted to, if we could have had an extra academy at that time when we were building it, that would have been one. And so we're really reviving that original idea and expanding on that renewable energy concept.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, you do have some additional workshops coming up, or meetings, or sites and facilities
Yes.
that we can fill in, and board members can get a better understanding as to where we're leading concerning the information that Dr. Karen Merrill just gave us, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So we move on down the agenda. I want to thank my chairpersons for this report. I have been trying to move the agenda in this way to make it a little bit easier, because at some time when we have the meeting, we can't be every place. And then when we get to action item, we've got to sit here for 2 and 3 and 45 minutes to go over these questions. We can sort of kill some of these questions and get through, because we have a lot of work to move forward to do. And I know you guys are ready to work. So if this is not gonna work for you, just tell me, and we'll look at it again. But thank my chairpersons again. Action item A. Teresa.
A, March 2024 financial report. Motion that the Board of Education accept the March 2024 Financial report as recommended by the Finance Committee in accordance with 24-87.
Motion made by Teresa, could I hear a second? Seconded by Louisa, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, could I hear aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion so carried. Action item B, Kate?
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education accept the letter of resignation from Board Member Richard Hawley dated April 22nd, 2024, and in accordance with Exhibit 24-88.
Motion made by Kate,
Second.
seconded by Teresa.
No, Michelle.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. I'm sorry, Michelle. Seconded by Michelle. Are there any questions? The attachments in the back, the date of the resignations in the back, the very last one.
It's okay, it's just missing.
So anyway, we want to send Mr. Harley a letter thanking him for his time that he served on the board. And appreciate what he brought to the board. I worked and served with him quite a few years before. And the process is now, we as a board have the opportunity to fill this position. I think the statute or the law states that we have up to 30 days to fill this position. His resignation was sent to us on April the 22nd. So we're looking, I think it's 14 days, Kim, and you can help me out, 14 days. Then the applicants that are applying for that job, it goes to the newspaper, all the areas around, community groups, and the Republican Town Committee and the Democratic Town Committee get the information and people wanted to apply. Okay, we know that this is a Republican seat, okay? So, but you have to be fair and send it out to all the other agencies, okay? And after that, we, the board, will set up time to interview those candidates that have applied for that position. And I think we received an email today around about the 13th or 14th, but we sort of realized that that's not gonna work for us on the 13th because we wanna be up at the high school, okay? So we're gonna have to, on the 13th. So we're gonna have to work, let me work that out with Carol tomorrow, okay? Let's not get excited, let's work it out. We can change it. Yes, Teresa.
The 13th, they're having the honors ceremony.
She just said that.
Yeah,
So just let me look at the schedule and see how we can work this out. But we had sort of had it, Carol looked at the date, that we can look at doing this within a time frame, because it has to be done within the time frame to do the interview and put that person in place. So we looked at the 14th. That's why that date came out first, because that would be within that initial time that we need to bring that person in and get an interview and get them seen. So let me work on that. Okay?
thank you.
Okay, am I okay, Kim? Okay, thank you. So,
We
yes.
didn't vote on it.
We can vote on Hawley's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we do it.
I thought we did. All in favor of accepting Mr. Hawley resignation with, with a heavy heart. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Thank you all. Superintendent report.
Thank you. So sometime last year, towards last spring, Senator Richard Blumenthal's office every year on an annual basis posts for, solicits for funding requests for high-impact Connecticut-based projects that can be completed with the assistance from the federal government. And so the Dearborn Public Schools threw in an application related to the academies, curriculum design, project-based learning, teacher training, all related to redesign to re-engage students, making sure that all of our curriculum is accessible and exciting and engaging. And we were awarded a $1.8 million appropriation for that application. So we're super excited about that. Right now we're in the process of, they just had a webinar for all the recipients. That just happened yesterday. There's a process where you have to set up a .gov site to start receiving communications and entering. There's a lot of monitoring, there's a lot of oversight process. We'll be assigned someone at the federal level who will oversee the grant spending and all the parameters around there that go with it. And so we'll have an opportunity to readjust some of the plan, because the plan's already a year old. So any work that we've already completed or things that we want to do, we have a little bit of an opportunity to tweak a few things. But we'll work with the person who will be assigned to us to learn about how to appropriately spend congressional appropriation and to do that efficiently. We intend to engage in a lot of professional development for our teachers. I'm happy to report that's coming at a great time right now, given what's happening, and we'll be able to provide them with a great deal of professional technical support related to that. So we could probably get some supplies in there as well, depending on how we make some tweaks. So given the circumstances that we're in, we'll be looking to maximize every dollar, and that I don't think we're going to be saving any staff members per se, because it's one-time funding, but certainly we'll make the most of a plan that is efficient and supports the teachers as we go through this curriculum change together. So very happy about that. And as we learn more about how we are to engage with the federal government around this, we'll be reporting that out.
Is there a sunset date?
So it's a one-year grant. It doesn't necessarily sunset in the sense that you can't continue to spend money beyond the year, but the scope of the grant is a year. It's actually kind of hard to spend $1.8 million in 1 year by the time you kick off. I'm pretty good at spending it, but it is just from past experience. There's a lot of work, and so you have to articulate and orchestrate a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time. And so it's not as easy as it appears. And by the time you get lift off and organize it, you turn around and the year's almost over. So I have some questions around that with whoever will be assigned to us on how we can navigate that process. So I think we'll be able to extend the expenditures beyond a year, but generally the time frame is for the fiscal year that you're awarded the appropriation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and the next item under the superintendent's report is really about the reduction in force process. And we're not necessarily going to talk about the categories and the staff in tonight's meeting. That is coming in the very near term. But we thought it was really important for that folks would understand what the process that we're engaging in right now and what that's going to look like. Because folks are nervous, and we're super, super sensitive to the stress that everybody's under. We're fielding questions all the time, especially some of our younger, newer staff, tend to be nervous. I'm sure Erin is also fielding lots of questions. So we're doing our best to do a very thorough process, and I thought it would be best if Kim could speak a little bit to that process, so that the board understands what is happening behind the scenes and what will take place once those decisions are released, and then how we'll proceed to close out the year with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to start by saying, whenever we go into a process like this, there's a couple of things that really need to be our hallmarks and our true North Star. One is collaboration with union leadership. And so I appreciate actually Erin's remarks tonight. We have had some experience in the past with reductions in force, and those conversations have always been marked by collaboration. In addition to being their union members, they're also your employees. And so we try very hard to make sure that we collaborate, that we're all on the same page with how we go through the process, because it gets a little bit complex. The second hallmark, or the second guiding star, I think, needs to be transparency. It is really critical when you're talking about people's jobs and people's livelihoods that we communicate as much as we can. And we walk that fine line between alarm and transparency, but transparency really needs to be the second hallmark. And the third really needs to be sound communication. And so what will define as we go through this process will be an effort at really comprehensive communication for all of our employees. This is it's a difficult process. This district has not been through something this size in quite a very long time. So I think that if we can maintain those true north as we go through this process, that will be important. I want to start just by giving you a little bit of an overview of what we have here, what we're looking at. We have right now 1,031 teachers. And we have just under 1,700 employees, and that's with quite a few vacancies in our paraeducator ranks. So, you're bumping up around 2,000 employees or so, all of which are going to be touched in some way by this process. So it's important that we remember that they are spread across 8 different collective bargaining agreements. They're all different. They all have different processes for reductions in force. They all have different recall procedures. So this becomes very much of a manual. We need to lay out all of the manuals bargaining unit by bargaining unit. And we need to follow the roadmap that is in those agreements as we go through the process of reductions and how people get placed. So those become critical documents for us. And then where there are gaps in those documents, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the oddball situations that we've had, we need to look at practice, and we don't have a whole lot of past practice in this area, but we need to look at past practice and how we walk through the reduction, and then we need to be sure that we are collaborating with our union leaders. So, with that in mind, the other group of folks, in addition to these bargaining unit and exempt folks, who are all employees at will, we had about 150 leaves of absence this year. That was a really big number for us. And so we also need to think about those folks who have been out temporarily who are planning on returning and making sure that we have a home for them as well, in keeping with these rules. So let me talk through a little bit about what we've been doing in anticipation of getting to today. And just to give you a sense of scope, this is myself and the cabinet working on what these positions look like, but also it's myself and I have 2 people in my office. I'm down to 2. And those will be the people that will be running this information for me. All of the work that we do will come out of Tyler. Tyler has actually worked real well for us on the HR side, and so that gives us a really solid database for pulling basically employee information. So the first big project that we have come around and completed is a list of open positions. These are all openings that do not currently have bodies in them. There are not currently people in them. Some of them might be fractional positions, some of them might be duplicates that emerge over time. Some of them are hard to fill positions that we're using overages for. So this list of vacancies needs to be clean and accurate. And the reason why is because as we talk about eliminating some positions, the first place those folks go is into open vacancies. Okay, so that list of openings becomes really critical and its accuracy becomes critical. It's a little bit of a moving target because we are now getting retirements and resignations in. So we're trying to keep a static list that's not super static. So issue number 1, Erin, that we'll talk about is kind of when is the cutoff going to be and how are we going to make sure that we get all of these open positions available for folks who may be displaced. We've been double checking that Tyler run, and we've run it several times now to make sure that we have an accurate list. We've been double checking that against our hiring list and our internal protocols to make sure that we haven't missed anybody and we haven't duplicated. And anything that we have taken out of that list, that vacancy list, has gone onto a master cut list so that we can start keeping track of estimates of what we think has been saved by cleaning out that list and making it accurate. We have looked at the list of all of our leaves of absence, and for those folks who are requesting an additional year of leave, we're making some decisions about making those positions open and available, possibly for next year. But we've also made sure, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a spot for folks who are returning and that they will then filter into these rules about reductions in force and bumping. So that piece has also been completed. The next piece was to look at all of our resignations and retirements. FYI, I know this becomes a budget issue, but we're up to 8 retirements so far. We did budget for more than that. I expect we will have more than that. This is just kind of the number as of the moment. With about 30 resignations to date this year. So that's also part of these open positions that are showing up. We'll continue to monitor that list, and from what I can tell right now, it looks like about 125 open positions, about 55 of which are for certified teachers. So that's the number I think we're zeroing in on now, is open positions where there are no bodies in them, that as we have to reduce, we will filter displaced teachers into those 55 spots. And I'll talk about how we're gonna do that in a second. We don't think that's gonna be enough. So we need to also make some critical decisions about what the other positions will be. And that's a conversation that happens with building principals, with the central office, and those decisions are being finalized now. So those are conversations we'll have with you about that. So I don't have that information yet, and waiting on that piece. But that's gonna be the harder work, and that work is going to involve things like, enrollment decreases where we can collapse sections, restructuring, those kinds of things. So that work is what's being done now, but not finalized. We're still pushing and pulling. The next piece is to make a list, once we finalize that, of every person who is in a position that is going to be eliminated. And that list needs to be name, needs to be location, needs to be position, needs to be date of hire, which may or may not be the same as seniority date. We've had some people work for us as subs who then come on and work for us or in other positions. They may have been out on leaves and come back. So seniority date becomes very important, and area of certification for teachers also becomes very important. Those lists are run. I actually shared one with Erin, I think a couple weeks ago, and we continue to update those so that they have accurate information. She mentioned her RIF meeting, so that's all critical information that we've been sharing as we go along. Other bargaining units have also received similar census lists of their members so that they can start looking at those lists and figuring out the impact. The next piece then becomes tricky because we now have a list of folks who've been displaced, and we have to figure out, once we fill the open positions, where do they go next? How do they bump? Now, in selecting some of those positions, there's different kinds of rules. For example, in the past, we have had sections removed out of an elementary school. When we remove a section out of an elementary school, we take any volunteer first, and if we don't have a volunteer, we take the most junior person to the building. That's another seniority date. So we have to figure out who the most junior person is in the building, and that will be the person who goes onto the displacement list. In areas that are programs, for example, several years ago, we reduced a language arts coach specialist. In that situation, it was seniority to the program first, and then seniority district-wide. So a slightly different seniority list. So for each one of these reductions we're making, the first effort has got to be, how do we select folks that are going to go onto the displaced list? The paraeducator contract also has lanes. So because certain people are being eliminated in one lane does not necessarily mean they have bumping rights into another lane. So another contract that needs to be reviewed. We sit with the union leadership, we look at the names, we agree that we're doing this the right way. So when we follow all of those rules to then determine what happens and who's going onto this displaced list, when we've completed filling the vacant positions, where do those folks go next? So the next list that my team has run have been, who have we hired, and we've gone back 2 years, just in an overabundance of caution, we don't want to be running these lists over and over, but we've gone back a couple of years, and we've organized new hires by date of hire. In some cases, it's down to the minute. We do digital hiring now, and we have had that situation where somebody signed at 4 o'clock and somebody signed at 5 o'clock. I would anticipate we'll get to that situation, but we look at the new hires, and then we determine whether any of those new hires may be bumped out of their position by more senior teachers who are on the displaced list. Okay? So that bumping needs to take place. Now, we can't necessarily take the bottom 20 people because some of them are special ed certified, some of them are social workers, and let's say that the teachers we're eliminating are math certified. So the bumping process becomes really tricky. And again, in the collaboration and cooperation, the plan here is for us to finalize these lists, to sit in a room with Erin and her team to say, this is how I think this goes. Do you agree? Are we missing something? Because I think that, what's the expression, you measure twice and cut once, like we're gonna measure 8 times. Again, because this is really important to people. I mean, these are people's jobs. And so we need to make sure not only that our lists are accurate, but that we're using the right kind of seniority date, that we're using the right bumping rules, and each one of those 8 bargaining units is different.
So you're not looking at the people who were hired under the ESSER grant, you're looking at the total picture. In other words, by position.
Right, our work is without regard to source of funding. Our employment work is without regard to source of funding. So it gets complicated. So, once we do all of that, then we will take a look at each bargaining unit's rules for recall. Some of them have a 2-year recall period, some have a 3-year recall. If we cannot offer a comparable position to someone who's displaced, then they go onto a recall list and they sit on that list for however many years the contract requires. And if a position opens during that time, then there's rules about, is it certified mail, do you call by phone, how do you communicate with these folks to say, hey, paraeducator, we now have a new opening and it's yours for the offering. So that's another set of rules that, we'll put in the parking lot for a SAC. If there become situations where we have additional retirements that we didn't expect, or people leave, or we have a flood of folks who leave the district, we may have more open positions. And I think we'll be in a situation where we need to use the recall, because we're gonna have already moved. We have to pick a date and start, and we'll have already moved some people. So that's gonna be a bit of a moving target for us as well. So, that's a long way of saying it's really complex. My eyes are going a little funny with all those spreadsheets. Some lines are coded red and some are blue and some are yellow. And we're doing what we can to make sure that Tyler is accurate. We are running what they call position control, which means there are only so many boxes for only so many positions. So we kind of can't screw it up that way. We can't create anything new or eliminate anything that's already there. So we're really trying hard to make sure that that is completely accurate. And we're really making sure that we've got the right lists with the right information so that we can work with our partners to make this as transparent as possible and that we communicate to folks what the rules are. I'm sure, I heard Carol reference earlier, and I think Erin did too, I'm starting to get emails, and I appreciate greatly that people are nervous. And I think that we are moving a lot of data with a very few number of people in a very short time. So that tends to be a recipe for error, and I'm really trying hard to make sure that's not the case.
Any questions? Mrs. Janelle?
Kim, this is a logistical nightmare.
Yes.
Mrs.
And-
Janelle, could you speak into the mic
Yeah,
so we all can hear your question?
It doesn't, this is not functioning, but
Yes,
it
it
is, yeah. As I said, this is a logistical nightmare. I assume times of the essence, and with you indicating yourself and 2 other people, what type of timetable are you putting on for this, so that at least you have all of the data and dotted all the i's and cross the t's relative to the bargaining units, et cetera, et cetera.
So I know we reached out, I think, and I don't know if you've seen that yet, but we've reached out to try to schedule a meeting for next week with Erin. I am hopeful that we will have at least the world of positions, and that we can talk through some of these odd situations with different seniority dates so that we can have those conversations. Next week is May 1st, so we need to do this as quickly as we can so that for folks that are being displaced, that they can look elsewhere. I think that with our paraeducator population, we do have a lot of open positions in that bargaining unit, so I'm reasonably comfortable that we'll be able to provide, some sort of comparable position to those folks. But the teachers I'm more worried about, and so that really is the focus of the next week or so. We have probably already put in, just this week alone, about 35 hours. We're kind of tracking how many hours we're putting in and what we're doing with them. That's just really, Kelly and I were really looking at the special ed folks recently. We've been looking at the buildings recently to try to make sure that we've captured everybody. my team has, they've run their lists and they're ready to go. So I'm hoping that we'll get those kind of early meetings with Annie and Danbury done in the middle of next week so that we can actually start. I haven't even thought, and I don't know if Erin has, about how we're gonna be transparent and communicate with folks. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people. Is that virtual meetings? Is that group meetings? We haven't even broached that topic. And we need to kind of come around a way that is fair, that makes people feel that it's humane. But we're down to only a couple people that are gonna be doing that. So I don't know whether we spread the wealth on that, or those are some of the conversations that we need to have about how we're gonna work with our employees. And these are folks that we recruited, we invested in, we've trained, we've brought them in, and we wanna make sure that, we can keep them and then they're treated respectfully, yeah?
Could we as a board then be apprised so that the procedures and the processes, as they continue, were updated so that we are at least aware of a process and not caught by surprise?
Of course.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think the worst thing would be that you all start to get bombarded with people saying, I don't have any information. That's the worst case scenario. So we really need to stay in front of that.
Juanita?
Thank you for that report, and I don't know who would have the answer, whether Kim or Karen. And so the data that you're giving, realistic and everything, and as I have brought up before this board over and over again, I'd like to, and we've talked about the teachers union, we talked about the parents union, I'd like to have some type of detailed report of the effect of the cuts that will be happening on the administrative level. I think our goal as a board is to keep the necessary people in front of our students. And so tonight we've talked about the numbers and, it's their jobs and, the effect. I think I heard a number, 1,031 teachers, right? 1,031 teachers. I didn't hear anything about admin. You talked about open positions. I don't know if any of those open positions are just professional educators, or do they also include administrators? So I, as a board member, am requesting some detailed report of how the cuts are also going to affect the administrative level and the cabinet on the board level. Thank you.
I think I can respond to that. Certainly, I didn't mean to exclude any group. We have 8 bargaining units and we have exempt staff. So on our list, we have actually run total numbers. I think that's important by tab, by group, so that we can look to see the percentage of the group that may be affected. So that's why we run totals for every bargaining unit in each tab, so that we can see what was the percentage of exempt staff that may have been cut? What was the percentage of administrators, nurses? So there are, as I said, there's 8 groups plus exempt, so there's 9 groups really to be worried about. So I agree with you, and I think as soon as we can make those reports available once the decisions are made about the positions. There are open positions in all bargaining units on that list of 124.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not so much, open positions, I
Yeah.
did mention that.
Yeah.
I guess you've already, you're talking about meeting with the teachers union, and how many, and this position, and how you have to go through the resignations, the retirements, the list of, having a list of every eliminated position. I guess what I am looking for, it's already been established, from what I understand, is the actual professional educator positions that will be affected. Please put forward, my request is to put forward before the board the list of administrative and cabinet positions that you are putting up for elimination or being affected by the cuts.
That's the work that's ongoing right now, that we haven't list of decisions is part of the note. I've been focused on.
So let me just follow up. So I understand, but Rich just asked about a timeline. We're headed to May.
Yep.
And so we're looking at a timeline for those also. And so that should be just as important as what you're bringing before the board tonight.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, if I could. So just to address that. So, and I think, you know, there's going to be expected cuts in all categories. I think, you know, I thank you for explaining tonight, and perhaps maybe just because Aaron was here, you can focus more on that. But there will be reductions in all areas at different levels. We're still having discussions based on how to reorganize. So there's one thing to do to have a reduction in elimination. When you're talking about the administrative ranks, someone has to pick up the work and still do the work, so it's complicated to redistribute and to reorganize. So there will have to be we're still working through the process of what administrative reductions look like in certain areas.
So I will respond, and probably because we're just trying to get the wording out on the table. But I assume when you say that somebody has to pick up the administrative end, when you eliminate professional educators, somebody has to pick up what they were doing also. You see what I'm saying?
I'm not disagreeing with you,
So,
but in terms of, a list, we're still working through that, I guess is my point.
Great, thank you.
Teresa and then Lauren.
You have that number, 125 positions to be eliminated.
No, I'm sorry, 125 vacancies right now.
Oh,
are open.
vacancies.
Yep, and about 55 of them are certified staff, the remainder are an amalgam of others. Those are open positions that we do not have bodies in right now.
Now, what is the dollar amount goal that you're trying to reach?
That's a tough one. So, because our funding request was based on the full need of everything. So it's really a matter of prioritization around a combination of how much can we tolerate to reduce and still achieve some level of operational effectiveness. And so it's hovering around, on our side, around that $10 million mark from the current existing structure that exists now as of today. So that lights on budget. So we need to reduce around $10 million in order to achieve some of the things, preserve the core of what's on the left of that lights on budget, while still accommodating things that are truly needed that are to the right of that in terms of the new asks.
I know you said that you're going to meet with Aaron and we're going to get names, of their actual positions and everything like that, and Rich had asked that the board be apprised of that. But is there a point where the board is presented with the information and there's like a discussion about the positions and how this all came to be before those final decisions are Joe Schmo's really out the door kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
I want to say that I'm really frustrated in the procedure, the process, because this is a cat and mouse game. Historically, we've never been in this position. We've always had differences between the superintendent's budget or spending plan versus the appropriation, but never in the magnitude of having this differential. And I don't ever recall us losing or letting go teachers, because it's always been that we keep teachers in front of the classrooms. But my frustration is with all of this work that's pending and the possibility of people being informed of losing their jobs. I'm a Pollyanna. And so let's say at the last minute, we get additional funding. And therefore, it's an embarrassment but a nice embarrassment to go back and say, you've been saved, we have X number of dollars. So, my frustration is with the way it's working. I would consider that, under this situation, that there be a serious talk with the mayor as to ultimately what is in the plan, what's in the game plan. Okay, so that we don't go through this exercise and mislead people or hurt people, and on a positive side, maybe bring them back because we have this. In addition to that, there may be other issues on the table that we could throw into the pot, such as utilizing the reserve. That would add some extra money to this particular issue. We understand the reserve is a one-time spending, but the budget does allow for one-time spending items there as well. So I guess what I'm saying, if we have more components of what we have for the revenue side, it would certainly make this exercise a lot more fruitful and not as much of a, I don't want to say a waste of time, but to go through a whole lot of pain. And ultimately, I would like to see a positive reaction to this. So maybe something like that can be considered, and because of the unique times we have, the mayor might be able to, reconsider, or, not want to hold this for an ace in the hole to talk about at a particular meeting, because time is, I'm talking about the May council meeting, because time is of the essence. So it's a consideration, and I think it might help at least in the process that you guys are going through.
Thank you, and I agree with you. It has definitely crossed our minds that there could be a late, funding source late in the game as the finalization of the state budget, then turns into something that the mayor may become aware of. I will say, I do feel confident that Roberto and I have an open door communication right now, which I feel good about. And so I feel like if we knew of something coming, or if that was, going to happen, that he would be really good about making sure that we knew about it right away. I do know that there's a lot of hard work happening in Hartford on our behalf. I don't think, I think the thought process on this, though, is that if we did get a late infusion of any kind, whether it be something that came down from the state, perhaps some additional ARPA ESSER money that's tossed around there. There's a lot of decisions that Hartford is still making. I don't necessarily think it could be used to save staff because of the timing that it would come to us, as well as the fact that it would be one-time funding. And so one of the things that while I would welcome any amount of funding that would come in right now, something that would likely be used for student laptops, copiers, the infrastructure, some of the issues that we have that we can fix one time. And the reason I would say that is because one of the things that concerns me is that 25-26 is going to be equally as challenging as 24-25. And the thought that, the amount of hours that have been going in, this is a night-and-day process. There's a handful of people at the table that are doing the work, and it's extraordinarily overwhelming. And the thought of having to go through, and so I'm not even thinking of the people doing the work, let's put that aside for a second. I'm thinking of the fact that if we don't, do the cuts the right way, we could be back here in 24-25, re-bumping everybody again. Because it just continues, that bumping effect continues. And I think this is going to be really a disruptive process in 24-25. I think it's going to be difficult for everybody. And I would rather, I guess, make sure that we're not inhibiting, creating a double cut process where we have to do the same thing all over again, disrupt teachers across all the levels and move staff again. So any late infusion that we get, if we get it, and we're so lucky to get something, I think we have to be really careful about how we apply funding, that type of funding, and making sure that the funds that we get from the city that we can rely on year over year are the ones that we're using with the thoughtfulness on the staff component. So again, I will take any and all money on the record so that we're not, but I agree with you, it would be wonderful to get.
I agree, I'm not advocating that we're all paid to the paintball and so kick the can down the road again in using one-time money for current liabilities and recurring expenses. But if we can just get a finalization on this so that it sort of puts us all on the same page and we can just move forward with a clear conscience. To come in with an additional infusion of one-time money, if there is that $1 million or even greater than that we could use, as you and I discussed, for the computers, that we can have utilization for those funds that are part of our budget, but not necessarily personnel. All right, thanks.
Michelle?
I just want to first say thank you, because I know that this is a huge lift. I know that board members have been here and that people are really working 24/7 is what I'm thinking, to try to, make this, I want to say seamless as possible, So I just want to say thank you to everybody for that. And my request is just, I know it's a snapshot in time because of all the moving, but you mentioned 125 open positions, 55 certified. Could you just let the board know what does that look like monetarily? If we're looking at 10 million to try to cut, and we're looking at this, and we had just had a meeting on sites and facilities about trying to, we're saving some positions that we might not have utilized, and so what all those numbers kind of where we drilled down are we looking at? Because you had mentioned some here, some today. How far are we really? I'm wondering, as a board member, how far are we, looking at cutting, or what does that number look like? Reality, with everything you've been looking and turning over every leaf, which I appreciate, and just want to see if you could provide that together. Thank you.
So, okay, let's start there. So, we're talking 100, right now, it depends on, so you're talking about a paraprofessional versus certified teacher versus administrator. So when you kind of put a lot of those in the bucket, you say somewhere between 125 and 145 positions, that's around $10 million. So you're in the ballpark of that range of around $10 million based on the configuration of the staff. So not all staff, if you say 125 staff members, and the bulk of them are paraprofessionals, that would be one cost. But in terms of the bulk of staffing openings and things that we're talking about now, that's around $10 million. So we're close to.
So in all essence, we're
right now where positions are and where certifications are and where those openings are completely different matches. So that's the match game that needs to. Is that me?
Yeah.
That's the match game that needs to occur. That it's not going to be a pretty match. It's,
I'm assuming 55 gives us a different, it's a different number than the remaining. So if you could just try to get us something to give us an idea of where we are and how far we need to go. Thank you.
Any other questions? Kim?
No, I want to thank Kelly and Kim in particular. This last week they've been in the office nonstop, like lights out here after meetings. So I just want to say thank you.
Moving on down the agenda. I think at one of my meetings, we sort of brought up to have a discussion about cell phones. And I know we've been so busy that we didn't have, but eventually we're going to get to having cell phones in the classroom, because that was a topic that I think Governor Lamont had given a big recital on the 6 o'clock news a couple of weeks ago. So eventually we will get to that discussion, okay? You have anything for information? Board chairperson report. I'm going to be very brief. I just would like to say to my colleagues, I really want to thank you for showing up on April the 11th to support our administration and our budget. And those that could not be there, you let me know ahead of time that you had other obligations. And I just certainly appreciate it. We were there. I've been on this board 32 years. And out of 32 years, I have only seen 3 people stand up and go before the council and support our budget. We had 6, 7 people down there supporting our budget. And I really want to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because we all could be doing something else. And when you have made family commitments, it's very hard to sort of break those ties and go over to something else. So I just like to say thank you. Last night was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience, and I want to just thank our leader who was there, and she hugged everybody. She embraced everybody, and it was beautiful. And I had the opportunity to just really, I couldn't hug everybody, but it was just nice being there to see what a wonderful group of educators that we have working in our system. So again, thank you. Our Memorial Day Parade, we have a float. So Lauren and her husband is gonna provide us a float. And we'll get that information to you as we get closer to Memorial Day Parade. Chairperson, my final thought is, and I say this from my heart, I love working with everyone. I would say every time that we have a meeting, we will continue to work together, Republicans and Democrats. We are educational people that's here to make sure that we support our educational system. And I want to say, I continue to look forward to working with each and every one of you. And if you have any concerns, if you don't like me, call me up and tell me, don't send me no text. Okay? Just call me up, we have a discussion about it, okay? So I just want to say I enjoy working with you. I like the communication that we have between us. And it has not always been that way. So let's just keep up the work and keep doing what we need to do to move this district forward. So with that, and nobody else have anything else to say, okay?
I'll be brief, Madam Chair. I just want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Yvonne Nicole Maisel de St. Croix, and also to Brooke Hagraft, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anybody's names. I understand that they helped some of our Broadview Middle School students in the 8th grade apply for participation in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, and that we've had 12 students who won a total of 30 different awards that were given out on April 7th at Manhattan Bell College, Reeves Castle, Georges. So thank you to those teachers.
I need a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
So motion made by Al, seconded by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right.
Wait a minute, then it's afterwards. Okay.
Yes, Teresa.